Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadi Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, we'll share the screen here. And there it is, first topic. First topic is continuing with our Hindu tools for success. (2009) Ancient history. A little refresher here. How did we define true success last time? What needs to be included in achieving true success? How would you explain true success to your children or other young people? We came up with a list of 6 items to give you a clue. True success includes Dharma, virtue, artha, wealth, kama, love, and moksha, liberation. And we explained moksha doesn't mean achieving moksha, it means making progress toward moksha. We're closer to moksha at the end of our life than we were at the beginning of our life. And the other 2, they share their wealth with others, and thus are considered pillars of the community, and they're serious seekers of the within. There it goes. Concept of enduring happiness. So a little bit of this is repetitious of some recent material, but it's in a different context. So it's in the context of achieving true success. Being happy is certainly an important element of being successful. The popular expectation is that happiness automatically comes from achieving one's professional and family goals. Many adults have told me that they are surprised that even though they have, after many years, achieved the professional and family goals they thought would make them happy, they find they are not happy. One measure of this is the frequency of divorce in modern society. Gurudeva confirms this idea in the cognizant ability resource in the back of his book, Merging with Shiva. True happiness can never be found in the conscious mind or its subconscious states. Oh. Short definition of the 3 basic states of mind. This was for the group in Malaysia in 2009, so many of them weren't familiar with this basic idea. Conscious mind, the ordinary waking thinking state of mind. Subconscious mind, the storehouse or recorder of all experience. Superconscious mind, the mind of light, the all-knowing intelligence of the soul. Certainly a deeper approach to achieving happiness is needed. Fortunately, Hinduism provides both with the philosophical knowledge that enduring happiness exists within us, within our soul, and also gives us practical methods whereby we can actually experience that happiness in our lives. Together, this philosophical knowledge about enduring happiness and the practical methods for achieving it constitute our first Hindu tool for success. So that's always important in Hinduism. You don't want to just stop by learning the intellectual concept. Happiness resides within the soul. Okay, I've done that. No, we need to also learn what the practices are to achieve it and achieve it through the practices. So being able to explain it is only the first step, and it's certainly the smallest step. Oh, this comes from Chapter 1, Hinduism, the greatest religion in the world, which back then was pretty new. Yogaswami. Thoughts on happiness. Seek the profit of the soul. The wise who have seen that the profit of the soul is what is truly of value will not be carried away by the transient joys and sorrows of this earth, but will live in the world like water on a lotus leaf. On the other hand, those who are unmindful of the good of their souls will go through life confused and agitated by worldly pains and pleasures. But the wise who, having the well-being of the soul as their aim, have rid themselves of the idea of good and bad and I and mine, will live in heavenly bliss beneath the holy feet of the Lord, free from birth and death. The ignorant who do not know this fall into an ocean of misery and put themselves in danger of entering the fiery mouth of hell. So Hinduism believes in hell. Hell is a state of mind and also a place in the inner worlds. It's a temporary state of mind in a temporary place. No one goes there permanently. The quote continues, if a man yearns wholeheartedly for victory in subduing the mind, let him practice Shiva Dhyana, meditation on Shiva daily. Then he will see for himself that, step by step, his mind will become one-pointed. Serenity, forbearance, control, and other such good qualities will arise in him. His mind will always be full of joy. He will not be dragged down by praise or blame. And the next sentence is the one that relates the most. But will enjoy happiness in his inmost soul, and the thought that the well-being of others is his own will flood his heart. The non-mystical approach to happiness is that if you attain what you desire, you are happy, and if you don't attain it, you are unhappy. Win the lottery, get a great job, and you are happy. Lose the lottery, don't get a great job, and you are miserable. Webster's dictionary tells us that happiness is the emotion evoked by success. Very precise. Or by the prospect of possessing what one desires. So even it looking very likely that it's going to happen can bring you happiness temporarily. A reflective person knows that this kind of happiness is fleeting. When we finally possess what we have been desiring, somehow the happiness soon fades, and before we know it, we are back to our own dissatisfied self again, desiring something new to give us that elusive happiness. New computer, new car, redecorate the home. That is fulfilling for a few months, maybe a year for the home. So the home is the one that lasts the longest. Redecorating the home or buying a larger home probably keeps someone happy for a year before it wears off. But eventually the charm wears off and the new home is too small. Being surrounded by family and friends, it is important. It is a natural and positive state to live in. It's fulfilling Dharma. However, the problem comes if we rely on family and friends to make us happy. So we want to be with family and friends unless we're a monk, but we don't want to rely on them making us happy. I'm an unhappy person, and because I'm with my family and friends, that will make me happy. This is also a false concept. We need our happiness to come from within ourselves. Then we can share that happiness with our family and friends. We should never fall into thinking, I am unhappy by myself. Somehow if I get married, if I have children, or if I have lots of friends, I will be happy. Does not work that way. Any temporary happiness soon wears away in the old cycle of fulfillment of desire. We get married. If we are an unhappy person, we may be happy for a while, but eventually we will fall back into the state of unhappiness because that is our mental habit. Mental habit. The mode our mind operates in. That habit does not go away just because we associate with new people. Desire, fulfillment, pleasure, loss, pain, suffering. That is a cycle of seeking happiness in outer things, be they possessions or people. What is the solution? Some say, give up desire. Desire is what is causing the whole problem. It drives us to get what we want. And when the happiness of that getting eventually wears off, we start all over again with a new desire. So if you can get rid of desire, you solve the whole problem, right? And the question for you, do you think giving up desire is the answer? If you don't, why is that? Gurudeva looked at it differently. He said, desire is life. And the reason we desire things is because we are alive. Desire is energy expressing itself. Energy expressing itself. The only way you could get rid of desire would be to get rid of life. Even if the physical body has passed on, however, even if we don't have a physical body, we are still alive. Still active, creative, and motivated by what? Desire. So trying to get rid of desire is not really a solution to the cycle of desire and fulfillment. Instead, Gurudeva suggested uplifting our consciousness and changing what we desire. That is how we solve the problem, by channeling or transmuting our energy. Desiring things that are more refined. Instead of desiring just to make ourselves happy, we desire to make our family and friends happy too. That is a higher desire. Going to school is a way of lifting up our energy. As a child, first we memorize, bringing the energies up out of the chakras below the Muladhara into the Muladhara, the first principal chakra. Then, in the Swadhisthana, the second principal chakra, we reason. We learn how to think. Then we learn how to push things through and accomplish them through the force of will in the Manipura, third principal chakra. Oh, we know the chakras. They're in what is Hinduism's chapter 16. Oh, the summary of this idea is we are pulling the energy up into memory, reason, and willpower in the normal process of schooling. Schooling is important, for it trains us to lift our consciousness, refine our character, and harness the baser desires. Interesting story about that. I've worked a few times with mothers who have young children, around really preschool, or pre-first grade anyway. First grade is 6 years old. So they're 4 or 5 years old, haven't started going to school yet, and at night they get fearful. And the mother hasn't been able to handle it. So I say, don't worry, it's going to pass. As soon as they get involved in memorization, it should diminish. In other words, fear is the chakra below memory. It's the first of the 7 lower chakras. So we're in fear. This is fear when we shouldn't be afraid. Fear when we should be afraid is totally different. But fear when we shouldn't be afraid means we're below the Muladhara chakra. So through the memorization, we come up in consciousness. So school helps us accomplish that. Cultural practices such as singing, dancing, and playing a musical instrument are also effective ways of refining desire. They help raise the energies even further than the basic studying in school. In doing so, we raise our consciousness and learn to avoid the grosser states of mind, doubt, depression, discouragement, and circumvent the base problem of desires leading ultimately to sorrow. A cultured person who has raised his or her energies through schooling and cultural pursuits will naturally be inclined to turn within, to claim the spiritual happiness that is inside of us, in our inner self, our soul. This happiness has a Sanskrit name, Sahajananda. Sahaja means that which is inherent, innate, or natural. Ananda, as we all know, means bliss, happiness, or joy. This we could translate Sahajananda as our inherent happiness. It's right there inside the soul. Knowing that happiness is already part of our inner self, the next step is to learn how to experience that part of us that is always happy. Our religion gives us inner ways and outer ways to accomplish this. And the question for you, what Hindu practices allow us to experience our inner happiness? The presentation is going to list 3. The monistic or meditative way is to turn within in meditation, go deep into the lotus of the heart and experience our inner self, our inner light, our spiritual energy. That makes us truly happy. That's a wonderful way. That is the way Paramaguru Yogaswami described in his song, in saying that if you practice Shiva Jnana, meditation on Shiva, daily, you will enjoy happiness in your inmost soul. And the thought that the well-being of others is your own will flood your heart. Of course, to practice meditation and to be successful in meditation are 2 different things entirely. When many people sit to meditate, they are unable to control their thoughts, which wander all over the place and never stop. In the successful practice of meditation, our thoughts do stop, and we are able to experience our inner self and the happiness that is always there. To be successful at the meditative approach clearly requires being trained in meditation by a good teacher. Thus, this method is the most advanced. But it's not the only method. In other words, in Siddhanta, there's a variety of approaches. In some traditions, there's just one approach. Approach of meditation, that's the only approach. The approach of devotion, that's the only approach. But Siddhanta is broader than that. There's also the theistic or devotional way. We can come to the temple and open ourselves to the blessings of the deities. We come in an unhappy state, receive the blessings, and go away uplifted and happy. Why? Excuse me. Because we have connected with our inner self through external worship. We have connected with the same blissful state that can be achieved through meditation. So it's the same state of mind. We just entered it through the assistance of an external event. Success at this method requires feeling some devotion for the deity and concentrating or paying attention to the ceremony. In other words, just because you're standing in the temple, this process doesn't take place if you're not feeling devotion and paying attention to the ceremony. Importance of concentration is illustrated in this analogy. Most everyone has a favorite music, which they've listened to uplifts them. However, if the music is playing and the person is thinking about something else, the music will not uplift the person. Clearly, one needs to pay attention to it for the upliftment to occur. Tenjing Puja works the same way. If we pay attention, we receive the deity's blessings and feel uplifted and experience our inner happiness. If we do not pay attention, then this does not occur. These blessings of the deity are called sanidhyam, refer to the radiance and blessed presence of Shakti in and around the temple. Some of Gurudeva's writings, he also refers to these blessings as the darshan of the deity. And it is easiest to feel their blessings at the high point of the puja when the flame is held high and the bells ring the loudest. That's good. Analogy with experiencing the sun. If we go outside on a sunny day and close our eyes, we can feel the sun's rays on our skin without seeing the sun in the sky, and in that way experience the sun. This is similar to what happens in the temple. Our inner or spiritual eye, the third eye, is not open, so we don't see the deity. However, we can feel in our nervous system the spiritual energy that radiates out from the murti, and in that way experience the deity through our feeling nature. Okay, we have a long one from Gurudeva on this process. There are 5 great Shaktis of Lord Ganesha, as he himself explained. Their positive vibratory rays can be felt through your astral physical body and should always be with you. What is this Shakti, you may be wondering? It is being in the presence of divinity. All holy men and women emanate all of these Shaktis, and you can too, some stronger than others. Shakti is divine radiation from the third world, causal plane, through the second world, astral plane, into the first, physical plane. The astral body is in the second world and lives inside the physical body. It is through the astral body that Shakti is felt, so it's not physical. Shakti comes from the third world and permeates the astral body in the second world. This is why the physical body sometimes seems to feel filled up with Shakti from deep within, permeating out to the inside of our skin. Deeply awakened souls become so filled with the Shakti of the divine that it permeates as cosmic rays out through the skin to the perimeter of the aura, the colorful film of light that surrounds the body. It is felt by other people and attributed as a personal darshana. Oh, that's very nicely said. We had that experience this morning. This morning was our monthly Ardra Nakshatra Abhishekam to Nataraja, which is medium-length ceremony. Sri Rudram gets chanted, and Abhishekam is pretty long. It's to the actual Nataraja Murti. It's only done once a month, and it's a very powerful ceremony. So we all got filled with Shakti from the inside out this morning. So we have a third way to move our awareness into our spiritual being. If you want to attain happiness, make others happy. That is a wonderful statement. Quite often we are unhappy because we are self-centered. We are in a selfish state of mind, concerned only about our life, our problems, our challenges. Life is not treating us fairly, we think, so we are unhappy. What's the antidote? Do something for other people. Try to make them happy. Gurudeva made an insightful statement about selfless service. Go out into the world this week and let your light shine through your kind thoughts, but let each thought manifest itself in a physical deed of doing something for other people. Lift their burdens just a little bit, and unknowingly perhaps you may lift something that is burdening your mind. You erase and wipe clean the mirror of your own mind through helping another. We call this karma yoga, the deep practice of unwinding through service the selfish, self-centered, egotistical vasanas of the lower nature that have been generated for many, many lives and which bind the soul in darkness. Isn't that a great sentence? I'll read it again. We call this karma yoga, the deep practice of unwinding through service the selfish, self-centered, egotistical vasanas of the lower nature that have been generated for many, many lives and which bind the soul in darkness. Through service and kindness, you can unwind the subconscious mind and gain a clear understanding of all laws of life. Your soul will shine forth. You will be that peace. You will radiate that inner happiness and be truly secure simply by practicing being kind in thought, word, and deed. So then again, here we have in the last sentence, the inner happiness, Sahajananda. Then we have some stories. Probably a number of you haven't heard these stories. a few years ago. It starts a few years ago, so that's probably 2006. A few years ago, we visited Oroville outside of Pondicherry, South India, and spoke to some of the teachers there about how they imparted spirituality to their students. One teacher shared a practice that she found effective. It was to have each of her students help another student every day, but without the other student knowing they were being helped. This certainly is an excellent example of the idea of attaining happiness through making others happy. Shows that even young children can be trained in this method of experiencing enduring happiness. Then we get Illinois. This is Kumbhabhishekam there. Big place for Caterpillar tractor. A few years ago, I met a young man at a Kumbhabhishekam in Illinois. He is a well-educated, intelligent young man in his late 20s and is teaching yoga at the local temple. As a result of our visit, he started reading some of Gurudeva's writings on the yamas and niyamas, period. He ran across the statement that we must perform our duty to our community and asked me what it meant. Interesting. He really had no idea to what it referred. Here he is. He's teaching yoga. He's a refined, knowledgeable person, but he didn't know what it meant to do our duty to our community. I answered by saying that the community in which we live is like a distant part of our family, and as such we have a duty to them just like any other member of our family. We need to devote part of our time and financial resources in helping solve community problems, such as providing food and clothing to the poor, providing volunteers for after-school programs, and so on. I also added that he could encourage the temple itself to have social outreach programs for this same purpose. This story illustrates the need to train our children and youth in the fullest meaning of Dharma, which includes duties to the community in which we live, ideally by having them participate in volunteer programs with other youth to provide help to the broader community. And we got another story, New Orleans. I'd like to share one more story about community service, which I saw a few years ago, again, 2006 or 7, television which relates to relief work in New Orleans, city in which a large number of families lost their homes due to flooding after Hurricane Katrina. The television story was about a good-sized group of college students who during school break all traveled as a group to New Orleans, lived in simple conditions for about a week, and during the day helped repair a number of the damaged homes. The interesting part was the testimony of the youth at the end of the segment. The common theme in all their statements was they had never done anything like this before. Here they are, they're in university, maybe average 20 years old. They'd never done anything like this before. We're quite surprised at how good it made them feel and hope to have an opportunity to volunteer again and do more of this rebuilding work in the near future. Interesting story. In visiting various organizations around the world, we always encourage the organization's youth group to perform community service at least once a year. Kids are very busy, but once a year is doable, and it's a frequency which impresses the mind if you do it every year. As is demonstrated in our New Orleans story, community service can be surprisingly uplifting to all the youth who participate. Okay, so we have a summary. In conclusion, Hinduism provides us both with the philosophical knowledge that enduring happiness exists within us, within our soul, and also gives us practical methods whereby we can actually experience that happiness in our lives through understanding the nature of desire, refining our desires, developing a cultured nature, and experiencing inner joy through the spiritual practices of meditation, devotion, and selfless service. And being able to live a happy life based on this knowledge and these practices is definitely an important part of success. Parents are naturally focused on making sure their children are as successful in life as possible, which is good. However, unfortunately, some Hindu parents feel that their children's participation in Hindu religious activities and studies is a complete waste of time, meaning that it contributes nothing at all to their becoming successful. As this section has pointed out, happiness is not that easy to achieve. But with the help of Hindu principles and practices, our children can lead happy adult lives. So this is another interesting story. This one I just put together. It struck me the other day after practicing and fine-tuning this presentation, which I do before giving it here. It is a few comments about Te Ata Fisher, 1895 through 1995, lives for 100 years. Was known for telling American Indian stories. She performed as a representative of American Indians at state dinners before President Franklin D. Roosevelt in the 1930s. We watched the movie, that's how we learned about it, Te Ata. If you haven't seen it, it's a very good one. One statement that impressed me was that in speaking of religion, she said that standing by a beautiful mountain lake was her cathedral. It made me ponder a quality of human consciousness. Take a cow. If a cow stands next to a water trough in a pasture or next to a mountain lake, to the cow, water is water. It doesn't get uplifted by the mountain lake. It takes a human consciousness for the lake to transport you into a religious feeling. We can explain the Hindu approach to meditation as acquiring the ability to move to that same state of consciousness without needing an external lake. So in Shum we call that one Anif. A-N-I-F, that consciousness that is like being next to a uplifting mountain lake, quiet and sacred. So it's right within us, and we don't need an external stimulus to move our awareness into it, is the point the story is making. And we have our Mauritian youth continuing a couple more times. Rachna. Social worker by profession, Rachna's paper name is Lakshmi Devi Horde. She's 24 and a trainer at National Leadership Engine, a graduate in pedagogy. She has founded the Indigo Early Learning Center. She is associated with many NGOs. And to quote her, Mauritian Hindu youth normally have two names. The paper name is chosen according to horoscope. The other is chosen by the parents, not according to horoscope. Everyone knows this by the second name. So this is really confusing in our database because the database has the paper name, but when you write to someone, you have to remember the name they really use. When I was growing up, my idea of Hinduism was the daily prayer done by my mother at home. The special Shiva Abhishekam that we do each Monday with the whole family holds a special place in my heart. If I don't participate in the prayer for some reason, I feel something is missing. I perform the Namakarana, Anaprasana, and Vidyaramba samskaras. I occasionally attend Ganesha Puja and I wear Raksha Sutra. That's the thread on the wrist. At 16, she stopped regularly going to the temple and participating in prayers because of high school exams, a common problem worldwide. But the regular rituals performed by family and friends have kept her involved with religion and rituals. Quoting again, sometimes there is Satyanarayana Katta, Satyanarayanan Katta at a family home. Marriage ceremonies also incorporate our customs and traditions. So there are so many things that keep us involved with religion and spirituality on the island. One thing that I feel is lacking in Mauritian Hindu society is the Gurukulams, which are found in India and other countries, but not yet in Mauritius. The caste system is an issue in Mauritius because some create their own groups, but I respect each individual. And moving on to our third topic, which is our new one, satsang@hindu.org. So for anyone who hasn't heard it yet, this is a email address. If you send in questions, we will answer them in a future Zoom satsang, and they need to be general philosophical questions that would interest everyone and not of a personal nature. Oh, this is continuing last week's fourth question with a different answer. Politics and spirituality may be considered polar opposites. Thus, for those of us who work in both fields, it often feels like the two are in conflict. And taking the time to focus on one impedes our progress on the other. How do I balance my political work, or for that matter, material work in general, with my spiritual sadhana and have them work to complement one another rather than go against each other? So this is an answer that comes from Publisher's Desk, 2016, Making Dharma Your Own. Recently, I gave a presentation at a weekend retreat of the Hindu Students Association, that's Texas. One of many written questions submitted to me in advance showed a common misunderstanding. We talk about detachment from Maya, but for most of us, our career and living is centered around worldly subjects and concerns. How can we reconcile this fact with our larger desire to separate from the material world? So slightly different. He's talking about we should be desiring to separate from the material world. In their pursuit of Dharma, these youth were struggling with the Upanishadic concept of self-abnegation, thinking that it applies to all Hindus, thinking they should be more detached from worldliness. I pointed out that it is vital to understand that in Hinduism there are two distinct paths, that of the householder, called Grahastha Dharma, that of the renunciate, Sannyasa Dharma. Self-abnegation and detachment from Maya belong to the renunciate path, not the householder path. This distinction of two paths is our second aspect of Dharma in the broader pub desk. To cognize quickly the differences between the two, take a look at the ancient ethical masterpiece Tirukural, Part 1 entitled Virtue or Dharma, Autumn. Section 2 is the way of the householder, and Section 3 is the way of the renunciate. Scanning the chapter titles immediately reveals the deep distinctions. Chapters in the householder section include wife, children, love, hospitality, and gratitude. Possession of self-control, avoidance of covetousness. Final 3 chapters focus on giving to others so generously as to achieve renown in the community. Chapters in the renunciate section include austerity, the impermanence of all things, renunciation, knowledge of truth, and eradication of desire. Without even reading the actual verses, it is clear that detaching from the materialistic world is a goal for those on the renunciate path, but not those on the householder path. For Hindu monks, the Tirukural stresses renunciation of wealth. For the householder, becoming wealthy is encouraged with the goal of generously sharing one's abundance with others. So this is a very important point, and I think a lot of Hindu youth aren't clear on it. It hasn't been explained clearly. That's why they're not clear. They hear things like, you should give up the world is a bad place, or things like that. Sometimes reading from scripture, you read that, but you have to have this concept of the two paths in mind to understand exactly how to apply it to your life. And that completes our presentation today. Oh.